Hey there, Christophe from the French Herbal. France is currently going through one of its worst episodes of drought, and fire risk is quite elevated. We have different regions that are burning right now, losing acres of forest, and it's very sad to watch. We feel quite powerless. And I know it's been the same in other regions of the world. So friends, if you're living near a fire, I feel for you. In this episode, I would like to talk about what we could do from a herbal perspective when smoke inhalation causes respiratory issues. Populations exposed to smoke, even from a distance, can develop chronic bronchial inflammation, and helping with this inflammation will be the focus of this episode. But first and foremost, please use common sense. Stay as far away as you can from the smoke if that's a possibility. Do not go outside. Prevent the smoke from entering the house. And if you need to be outside, wear a good quality mask. Also, please call the emergencies if you feel respiratory distress, if you have heart conditions, if you feel weak, if you have any other health issues that are getting worse with the smoke. I am not a doctor, I am not a pharmacist or a healthcare professional, so if you have any doubts, please go to your medical team before you experiment with herbs. The advice given here should be seen as a complement to medical advice, not a replacement. And just to be clear, I'll be talking about the general population exposed to distant smoke here, not like firefighters who are right in the middle of the action, because those people need special medical care. Okay, before we start, I want to share my own experience with fire. I was living in San Diego in October and November of 2003, and I lived through one of the most terrible fires of Southern California. It was called the Cedar Fire, and it got out of control so fast. It was driven by the Santa Ana winds, and I don't know if you know how San Diego is built, but it has many small canyons through the city. And those canyons during the hot and dry periods, they're like tinder, kindling, and straw. They're highly flammable corridors within the city. So the fire spread at a rate of 3,600 acres per hour. That's 15 square kilometers per hour. That's crazy. And by the time it was under control in early November, it had destroyed more than 2,800 buildings, including more than 2,200 homes, and 15 people got killed. And I was so close. The suitcases were ready by the door. We were awaiting evacuation any minute. And we did not get evacuated in the end, but we were very close. And for several days, we lived indoors with wet towels under the doors to prevent smoke from getting in. The sky was red and the air was unbreathable. And I did, something a little crazy back then, I admit it. One day I took the car and I drove around. I was not supposed to do that, but I needed to get out of the house. And that was quite stupid. My lungs took a hit because, of course, I did not have a mask. And back then, I did not know anything about herbal remedies. I wish I had. Anyway, that's my experience with fire. And friends, if you are in the same situation, I really feel for you and I hope you stay safe. Okay, that being said, let's try to understand what happens when we inhale smoke from a fire. So our respiratory tract can potentially sustain damage due to the gases and particles we will breathe in. And damage can happen at 3 different levels, if you will. First, heat can directly burn the tissues of the upper airways like throat and trachea. Then next, particles containing the smoke can go down and irritate and damage lung tissues. And then finally, carbon monoxide and other nasty gases can interfere, get into the blood and interfere with the blood's ability to transport oxygen to vital organs. So you can picture those 3 levels going deeper and deeper into the body. The first impact is at the surface, throat and trachea. Then we go deeper with damage to the lung tissue, the alveoli, and then even deeper inside the body in the blood with a reduced ability to oxygenate our cells. And this could create cardiac issues, and we won't go there, obviously, because this requires medical attention. What makes this condition particularly insidious is that symptoms don't appear immediately. Some people feel fine in the first hours following exposure, and then they can develop serious conditions maybe 24 to 48 hours later. So it's a progressive inflammatory process. So inflammation is another way to think about the problem. And there could be 3 stages of inflammation, from fairly manageable to quite concerning. Initially, the respiratory tract reacts with persistent coughing. That's a natural reflex to expel an irritant. There's a burning sensation in the throat, and breathing becomes difficult. And at this stage, inflammation can cause swelling of the airways, what we call edema, so reducing airflow passage. The person may be wheezing. They may spit some dark mucus, indicating the presence of soot particles in the bronchi. In the medium term, without appropriate intervention, this inflammation can progress into acute pulmonary edema or pneumonia, 2 very serious complications that require hospitalization. To go even further, chronic inflammation can lead to pulmonary fibrosis, which is a permanent scarring of lung tissue, which is quite concerning. So, as you may guess, managing inflammation and soothing the mucous membrane is a key part of the strategy. Initially, inflammation is always beneficial. It's part of the healing process. But at time, though, it can become excessive and counterproductive, worsening airway obstruction. So, and again, I'm repeating myself, but seek medical care if required. Certain individuals will be more vulnerable, older people, those with pre-existing respiratory diseases like asthma or COPD, those with pre-existing cardiovascular issues as well, young children, so extra care needs to be taken with those at-risk populations. A quick pause to let you know that you can grab my free ebook on preparing herbal teas for the 4 seasons. It's full of simple recipes and blends you can make with herbs you can buy or even grow almost anywhere. The link is right below this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, that being said, let's talk about herbal strategies. I will retain 3 key components. Number 1, the need to regulate inflammation in the throat, trachea, and lungs. So here we're in the realm of anti-inflammatory plants. Number 2, the need to help the lungs excrete toxic waste, and here we're in the realm of expectorants. Number 3, the need to provide the bronchial tissues with building material to repair the damage, and here we are in the realm of what we call in France restructuring plants. The airways need to be open, the mucus fluid, the expectoration process nice and easy, and the rebuilding process efficient enough when cells are damaged. If the tubes are starting to close, if the mucus thickens and cannot be expectorated, if the alveoli cannot heal fast enough, then Houston, we have a problem. You follow me so far? So here are the 3 categories of plants that I will pick for this situation. Number 1, plants rich in mucilaginous, as they will soothe the bronchial mucosa and lower inflammation. Number 2, aromatic plants that will help to fluidify and move the mucus. And number 3, plants rich in silica, since silica is needed to build collagen, and that collagen is a main constituent of lung tissues. So let's go through those categories one by one. First of all, plants rich in mucilage. They should have a big place in the strategy. The air we breathe will be hot and dry, and mucilaginous will bring some humidity and coolness to the respiratory tract. And here we have many choices possible. Marshmallow, root or flowers, slippery elm, common mallow flowers, violet flowers, linden flowers, etc. But we can go one step further and pick mucilaginous plants that were used in the past for lung inflammation. And here we have mullein flowers. We have also lungwort flowers. We have plantain leaves. Red poppy flowers could be interesting if there is too much irritative coughing, and see my episode on red poppy to see what I mean here. A bit of licorice root could help if you do not have elevated tension. A bit of honey would add a nice soothing effect. In the end, I will stick to something that I can pick in my region, which is mullein flowers. And feel free to adapt to your region. There should be plenty of mucilaginous plants around you. Our second category is aromatic plants that help to move the mucus. I love thyme. I like also eucalyptus, hyssop, pine buds, myrtle, grindelia, elecampane. And here again, I will stick to something I can pick in my region, which is thyme. And the aromatics will be second in command to the demulcent, to the mucilages, meaning that I will put less aromatics than demulcents. Our third category, in terms of plants rich in silica, I will pick horsetail here. First, because it's very rich in silica. I can find it in my region. And in the past, practitioners used it for any serious lung condition with tissue damage and even bleeding of the lungs, which happen in like tuberculosis or any other nasty pulmonary conditions. So the plant actually has strong affinity for rebuilding the lungs. And a quick reminder, we only use field horsetail, also called common horsetail, which is Equisetum arvense, not just any type of horsetail you can find. And I will explain why in a future episode on horsetail. In terms of silica content, we could also use nettles. We could use oat straw and other plants that are rich in minerals, silica included. But again, it seems to me that horsetail has something more interesting than the other plants for lung conditions. Okay, now I will compose my blend. It could be a tincture blend, it could be capsules or other forms, but here hydration is key. The person needs to drink a lot, and this will keep healthy lung secretions. So I will suggest a herbal tea. So let's formulate something simple. In a large teacup, you could put a tablespoon of mullein flowers, a teaspoon of thyme leaves, and please make sure your thyme is very aromatic, a small tablespoon of horsetail finely cut, and a bit of honey. You let it infuse for 10 to 15 minutes covered. You filter, that's it, sip throughout the day. And I suggest 2 to 3 cups a day. Remember to strain your herbal tea since it contains mullein. See my episode on mullein to understand why. It's got those little hairs that are irritant to the lungs, to the respiratory tract. So yeah, I know it's weird that it can be soothing and irritating to the lungs at the same time. Soothing and humidifying through mucilages, and irritating through the tiny hair that we need to filter out. So anyway, filter your tea, let it run through a coffee filter, not just a tea strainer, because the mesh will be too large for the tiny hairs. In addition, if there is no edema, again, I'm not talking about serious issues here, just manageable ones at home. Consider water or herbal inhalations. It could be just water vapors. So you pour hot water in a large bowl. You put a towel on your head to make sure the steam stays around your nose and mouth. And you stay there for like 5 to 10 minutes and breathe through your nose. Of course, please, not too hot. Do not burn yourself. There needs to be steam, sure. So it needs to be hot water, but be careful. Ventilate by opening the towel if it's too intense. You could add some aromatic plants before pouring the hot water. And, same plants here: eucalyptus, hyssop, rosemary, thyme, lavender would be great here if you have some. And, overall, a good pinch or even a small handful of dried plant for a large bowl of water would be good. Steam is more important than the plants here. So just water vapors will humidify the lungs and help to lower the congestion and help to expectorate. And I would do at least a couple of inhalations a day, maybe more if needed. If the eyes are inflamed, a simple eye wash will help. And here, sterile saline solution that you can buy in pharmacies is quite convenient. A few drops in each eye, repeat as needed. Or you can make that liquid yourself, actually. You will find plenty of web pages or videos on the internet telling you how to do this using boiled water and the right amount of table salt, which is 9 grams for a liter of water. And use fine white salt and not coarse salt. A nasal rinse using that type of liquid with a neti pot for sinus inflammation and also to get the sinus gunk out would be very good. You can do a herbal version of sterile saline solution as well, which is actually a salted herbal tea using 9 grams of salt for a liter. And you don't need to make a liter, right? Just adjust to your needs. Do a proportion of that. So you put the herbs, the cold water, and the right amount of salt in a pan. You bring it to a boil. That's important. You simmer it for a couple of minutes, covered. Then you make sure you filter the liquid. You don't want pieces of herbs in your eyes. That would defeat the purpose. And then you use that liquid once it has cooled down as an eye rinse or sinus rinse with a neti pot. You cannot keep that liquid for long. A few hours at most, maybe a little longer in the fridge. However, it is best to make a new batch as needed because it needs to be sterile. As for the plants, keep it simple. Plantain would be great here to make your liquid. And you can find plantain wherever you live, I think. Cornflower is also a classic of French herbalism for eye care. I did a full episode on cornflower. Could be eyebright, could be other plants that were used in the tradition for eye inflammation. And again, sorry for the repetition, but sterile saline water will also do the job if you have nothing else. All right, friends, that's it for now. I sincerely hope you will not need this episode and that you will stay far away from any fire. But if that nasty smoke gets a little close, I hope I have given you a few tools and a strategy to adapt to the plants that are growing around you. Please go to the emergencies if you have any doubts. Stay safe, herbal friends, and thanks for listening. I will talk to you soon in the next episode of The French Herbal.